Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. What a joy it is to have you join us today. My name is Maureen Zawadi, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our very warm mental health get together. Here at Zamara, we pride ourselves in making your mental health our priority. And in line with the World Health Organization's 2021 theme, we seek to make it our agenda to build awareness and make quality mental health care a reality for all. Thus, allow me to thank you for making time to gather in this space today. It speaks volumes to the value that you attach to a mental health conversation at a personal, community, national, and global level. Thank you very much. We intend to have a very interactive session, and on that regard, allow me to mention a few things. That number one, our Q&A and chat platforms are open for engagement, so please feel free to direct your comments and questions to us via this. We will do our best to answer most of this live and hope to actually leave no stones unturned. We will be running some polls just to collect feedback that will make our session meaningful, and I request your full and honest participation. Kindly note that you may opt for anonymity when making comments and asking questions, so feel free to do that. And also the poll responses that we will be receiving from you will be equally anonymous. Finally, there will be a short survey post-webinar. Kindly take a few seconds of your time to fill it out because we really do value your feedback. And at this interval, I'd like to invite my co-host to introduce themselves and to continue with our program for today. Lillian, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Zawadi, for this great session. It's a pleasure, and especially because of this specific month, that is October. Apart from being the Cancer Awareness Month, this is the period that we focus more and a lot on mental health. However, it is important to note that mental health should be a daily activity. We should not just focus it to one day, which is the October 10th. Mental health currently in the world, not just in Kenya, has become a very huge debate. Reasons? COVID. There's a lot of change. There are many things that are happening right now in the world that's brought a lot of quote unquote confusion, a lot of instability. Many times we focused on physical health. What about mental health? So we're taking advantage of this particular forum, this webinar, to bring awareness on mental health. And it is also important to remind ourselves that there's no health without mental health. And I like giving this example. When I get a stomach ache, when I have a running stomach, I find myself and rush to the hospital. What about when you're so stressed? What about when you're not able to think straight? What about when your system is so overwhelmed? What do we do? Where do we go? So today, we're giving us this forum, and I'd want us to listen to a poem that tells us about the safe space. Zawadi, safe space, please. As we wait for Zawadi to load the poem, Mr. Gidongo, just introduce yourself briefly before I officially introduce you. There we are, just hold on.
To all the children who grew old in a single moment and have never known what it is to be young again. Aged while crawling through life, and first steps were holding.
Yes, you can hear Zawadi, just proceed.
Broken promises before learning how to hold tables, not knowing how held back you would be. And the only thing you would excel at holding is holding yourself back from living. Breathe. Others were birthed, but for you, you felt pushed out. and have since been seeking a space to belong and hopefully be born new. To all the adults who became children in a single moment and have never known what it is to grow again. Thrust into fear and torrential tears while trudging through life, and your steps were cut short by words that ripped the ground from under your feet. Now, clutching for clouds in hope that the flying colors you were promised would help you land safely, only to fall into the wounds you hid as a child. An adult crying for a mother they never knew how to love, and a father whose only claim to you was the portal that brought you here. In one instance, we move from alive to lived and become voyagers with no way home. Paddling through rough seas with creatures we hid under the carpets, calling our names underneath the water. Calls that seemed so familiar they could be friends, but so distant it could be a version of us we thought we could be, but had to bury before they were ever born. Oh God, gods, universe, me, ancestors, every call for help is hesitant. Because you were only ever cradled by trouble. And here you are, wishing you could be nursed and rocked to lullabies to lull you back to life. And here you are. And there too. And there you are as well. Pieces of you flying past at the speed of your unwarranted metamorphosis. But here you are. One piece standing, another piece crawling, another piece crumbling. But here you are. Believing these pieces can, somehow, come back together. Others may look unbroken, but they are not yours to covet. For you, with all your broken pieces, may look like a mosaic with colors you can never forget. I know you are tired of not knowing the time and what age you are now, and your feet unsure of if they carry a casket or a cradle. But that in your chest knows that it carries one so formidable, and your heart beats to the rhythms of time travel that nearly left you dead. But here you are, alive, barely, but not dead. And for others, this may be a tragic tale. But for you, it's another day to wake up and try to put the pieces together. So come, let's go, and I'll show you the safe spaces where you can work to be whole again.
Safe spaces where I can show you to be whole again. And part of the safe places we have here in Zamara, we do offer counseling services. That is part of the safe space that we are reassuring you that as Zamara, we have put a lot of focus, not just on physical health, but on mental health. In the call, we have with us the main speaker, that is Mr. Kimani Gidongo, James. He has a very rich profile, but I'm going to try as much as possible just to pick a few pointers. Mr. Kimani Gidongo is a PhD candidate for counseling psychology at the Kenyatta University. He has an MA counseling psychology from the DESA University, that is the 2010. On top of that, he's also an advocate of the High Court, and he has an LLB, University of Nairobi. He has a postgraduate in law, that is from the Kenya School of Law. And most of all, the reason why we also chosen him is the immediate former chairperson of the Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association, commonly known as the KCPA. He is currently the chairperson of Counselors and Psychologists Society of Kenya. Not forgetting that he's also a certified professional mediator, and currently the Regional Institute of Professional Mediators. He is currently the secretary. He's been practicing advocate since 1987. So as I said, his profile is very rich. So I'm going to leave it at that particular point. And also, what I'll add, he's also the chair and the council member of Family Wellness Center. He's also chairperson and council member of Boma Training Institute. This means that apart from practicing as a mediator, as a counselor and advocate, he also does a lot of training. Mr. Gidongo has a very rich background on psychology, and he also took part in advocating and also pushing for the current mental health bill that was signed in 2014. So Mr. Gidongo has passion, not just for advocates, but majorly on the mental health sector. Mr. Gidongo, before you take your time to speak, we're going to have the first poll. So Zawadi, please load the first poll. How likely would you seek help for any mental issue? Remember, we said it's anonymous, so feel free to respond. And then immediately after that, after the results, Mr. Kimani, you can begin the presentation.
Guys, keep going, keep going. We are having a good turnout. We are about to close the poll. Right. All right, we are going to end this poll in a few seconds. Countdown: 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so allow us to close this poll at this juncture. All right. So the results should be on your screen right now. And we are having 34% saying they are likely to seek help. That's a really good sign, I believe, Lilian and Mr. Gidongo. But we have a few, 9% who are not certain they would seek help. I don't know where either of you fall. But Mr. Gidongo, maybe you can comment on this and then proceed to share with us what you have for us. Yeah.
This, Lilian, and is a very good outcome in terms of the poll. When we are polling 52% is likely, it is a good indicator that people have some little bit of knowledge about what mental health is all about. That is not, so not 52, it was 34%, which is the highest of the poll. Or the highest was, yeah, which is the highest on the poll, which is very good indicator. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kimani, take it away.
Thank you very much. Allow me to say thank you very much, Lilian, for your kind words in introduction, and to Zawadi and Zamara for having me on board today so that we can have this engagement about mental health. I am not going to do the facilitation in terms of like a lecture. I would want a lot of engagement. But may be muted. As a result of that one, what they can do is post their comments on the chat as we go along. But by and by, I'll be posting about so that we can engage in that kind of conversation. And as we go about mental health, I do not want it to be stereotyped and stigmatized. Like we always know, we grew up knowing that mental health issues are for those people who collect papers on the streets. Mental health are those issues that find people locked up at Madara Mental Hospital, the only one we knew as we grew up. And therefore, let's talk about mental health, about something that Lillian has just spoken about and saying, yes, when we wake up in the morning and you feel, oh my God, do I have to go to work? Oh, now look at the weather. Those are issues to do with mental health. Allow me to share my screen. I'll just be picking one here and there, not necessarily going through the entire written format of it. And I hope it is there on the screen. My co-hosts Zawadi and Ririan, could you confirm that you got it on the screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Confirm.
Thank you very much. And we cannot talk about mental health without looking at our wellness, because it all starts there. And therefore, we're going to start with looking at wellness. And what is wellness? And we know we get engaged in life with so many things, so many activities. And as a result of that, those many activities we get involved in, we can compromise our wellness. And the researchers have defined wellness as becoming aware and making choices that will lead you towards a healthy and fulfilling life. No less an organization that organization has defined wellness as a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of the disease or infirmity. And that is what we keep on saying. It is not merely the absence of disease or illness that comprises wellness. It is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And this leads someone to have an optimal state of health, optimal operation. There is this other National Wellness Institute based at the US, which defines wellness as an active process of becoming aware of and learning to make choices that will lead to a longer and more successful existence. And that is all what wellness is all about. All the writers are now agreed that those are the components of wellness. We can look at it from 8 dimensions, starting from down there. Environmental awareness. How are you relating with environment? Intellectual wellness. How are you intellectually? And intellectual does not mean academics. It means, are you in your own cognitive elements within your brain being able to recognize this as against the other, cognitive intellectual abilities. And then the spiritual wellness. And spiritual wellness basically does not have anything to do with going to church, to the temple, to the mosque, or anything else. It is you are in tandem with your belief system. What is the belief system that you are in, and are you okay? And you know for sure, whether you worship, you go to the temple, to the mosque, or to the church every single day that is allocated for that particular activity, we know that is a day that we actually can set aside to go and worship. However, day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis, if the power trips, like now we are on computer, we are on technology, and power trips, and I get off, the very first word people say, oh my God. That is getting in touch with your spirituality. We know we are living in hard times. Riden has just spoken about COVID, and we know what it has affected us financially. And financially carries the other elements, because our socialization may be impacted, our emotional awareness may be impacted, and some of us have lost jobs. And as a result of that one, even physically, we could be feeling a little bit weak. And those are the 8 dimensions of wellness. And if all these are not actually in sync with how you are feeling, then there's an element of mental health. I will not go and slide by slide, but all of these are actually elaborated in those notes. I'll straight jump to issues of mental health derived from that aspect of awareness. And if we are going to talk about mental health, there is no way we can avoid looking at the individual, you yourself, and what surrounds you, because that is actually what impacts mental health. And mental health has been defined as a state of harmony between yourself and the others. What is the interaction between yourself and the others out there? And a human being is a relational being. And being relational means that you're going to interact with the people all around you. If you leave people from your house, you're going to step outside, and outside your gate, outside your compound, you're going to meet neighbors. Outside the compound and the estate and the village, you're going to meet others who are strangers. They could be pedestrians. They could be the passengers you're boarding a plane or a vehicle with, or others who are just walking. And you have to have some little bit of relationship. What harmony are you creating between yourself and those other people? And therefore, World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which you as an individual, you realize your own abilities to cope with the normal stresses of life so that you can work productively and fruitfully and make a contribution to the society that you live in. And doing a contribution to the society is one of the easiest things ever, because the moment you step out and you are friendly to literally everybody else, you don't have to talk to them, you may not even smile to them, but give way to them, ensure that you're not being an obstruction to the people. That is a component of mental wellness. And again, we look at now the dimensions of mental health, and we can start with number one, the meaning and purpose. The meaning and purpose of your life down here. What are your vision? What is your vision? What are your goals? What values do you hold dear? Are you connected with the people that you live with, the people you reside with? Are you connected to the environment that you are in? Are you connected at the workplace? And this connectedness, how is it? Because there could be positive connectedness and there could be negative connectedness. How are you when it comes to your relationship with other people? The social skills that you may possess. Are you a good listener? What the psychologists call an active listener, listening with a third ear. How relational are you with everybody that you are dealing with? What is your mode of communication? Or you talk and then people go backwards and ask, what was he talking about? Are you very, very cooperative? And do you have the collective efficacy? The collective efficacy that you be able, and this is a word that people keep on using, to be a team player, to be one person who can be relied on when it is group work or teamwork. How about cognitive resources, the ones that we spoke about earlier on? Your learning style, your accumulation of knowledge, or if you accumulate knowledge, the way you are able to dispense or to give out that particular knowledge to the people who require it. It could be the children who rely on you on a day-to-day basis. Do you show them around? Are you able actually to impact something that these children can learn from you, and they can say tomorrow, yes, we actually learned this from our dad, from our brother, from our uncle, from our sister, from our mother, from our aunt? And are you flexible, or are you absolutely very rigid? In spite of the kind of personality you could be, like a choleric or a melancholic who are very rigid sometimes and who are very task-oriented, sometimes you call for a degree of flexibility. And in particular, when you hear the other side of the story, and then you can say, all right, now I was of this opinion, but after having listened to this particular presentation or argument or discussion, now I can change my mind, or it has dawned on me that this is not actual position. In terms of innovation, and innovation, you're not talking about manufacturing or any scientific things. We know very well the kind of innovations that we can have, and you don't have to scream your head out when power goes out, and especially in the night in our houses. You can always remember that you can use a candle, or there are solar bulbs that they're there. You can be very, very creative and be able to keep on changing in accordance with the changing demands of our lives. And the most important of them all is the emotional resources that you may have, because we are actually going to engage ourselves in relationships. We're going to engage ourselves in occupational engagements. We're going to engage ourselves in very many areas, including politics, which can be very, very emotional. And therefore, how is your mood like? Are you able to regulate your mood so that you can be able to cope with the situation? You are watching news at 9 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, something very stressful comes over, and then you are actually saddened about it. Can you continue being sad about that one, or what can you actually do? And that is where now the issue of emotional intelligence kicks in. And emotional intelligence, basically, it is two words in one. It is two aspects in one: the emotional state and the intelligence that you can possess to be able to manage that emotional state. Therefore, emotional intelligence, by definition, says the ability to perceive what is this that I am feeling. And then once you interpret the emotion appropriately, then you can be able actually to manage it for yourself and somebody else, in the event that there's somebody who is also in that kind of an emotional state. And if you're able to regulate your own emotions and the emotions of the others surrounding you, then we can be talking about you operating at an optimum stage. So mental health, it's one component which involves various aspects, and it is our emotional state, our psychological state, and our social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It will determine how you are going to handle stress. It's going to determine how you relate to others and the choices you make in life. And mental health, from the very, very beginning that a child is born, and immediately a child gets out of the tummy of the mother and is exposed to this particular our world, it makes some very important sounds, or makes activities that the nurses are very happy with. And I know you are aware about the scale that they use from 0 to 9, and if a baby scores up to 8, it is okay. Something like sneezing, something like crying, because it has been exposed to another environment that it did not know. And that is very good for the nurses. That is very good for the baby. And mental health begins there, because look, I've come to another environment. This is either cold or too hot for me. And there is a way of expressing that by sneezing, or by crying, or by smiling, whatever it is that the child may be able to exhibit. It grows, it moves on with us, mental health, from childhood to adolescent, to young adulthood, to old adulthood, until the very, very last of our times. And therefore, over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems in terms of how you're thinking, how your mood is affected, then the end result will be the behavior that you exhibit. And that behavior is the one that gives the first indicator that actually you may not be well or you may require attention. And the risk factors may be genetic, that's biological, the experiences you go through life, the family history that you may be coming from, that family of origin, it may have been predisposed to mental health problems, and most likely you may also be predisposed to that. Environmental factors, like now we are living in a state of being anxious, being stressed on account of the pandemic that we are experiencing. And this pandemic as well has affected literally every part of our life. For most of you who are parents, it has affected you in very numerous ways, in such that even if we don't talk about illness, even if we don't talk about other issues, very soon, which is actually this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you'll be paying school fees for the 4th time this year. And that is something that is affecting parents very, very negatively. And it could cause anxiety, it could cause stress, it could lead into depression if it is not taken care of, or depending on how the parents perceive it. I was talking to teachers in Naivasha on Monday, and we are talking about how also they are stressed in terms of ensuring that the curriculum is developed. Now, that is the second sector within the education department that is affected by the environmental factors that we find ourselves in. And don't forget the students themselves, the pressure that they are in. There are very many types of mental ailments, which I will not bother you with a lot on account of the fact that they may not actually be identifiable until the mental health experts make an assessment of them and be able to come up with a proper diagnosis. But they range in mood disorders, anxiety disorders, basically mood disorder. Let's talk about that one. Your mood is supposed to be operating at a moderated level, not very high, not very low. When you're very, very high, it seems as if you're agitated. If you're very, very low, it seems that something is not working out well. Anxiety disorders, you feel anxious at one time or the other. Actually, feeling anxiety is not the main problem, because at one time or the other, you will get anxious. Managing or being able to control the anxiety is what we may actually be interested in. Are you able? Can you continuously feel anxious for a week or two? If that happens, that is a great red flag. There are personality disorders arising out of us as persons and what we come up with. And you may be talking about the 4 main personalities: the choleric, the melancholic, the phlegmatic, and the who is the other one? I'm forgetting the third one. Somebody can help me with that one. And then the psychotic disorders. Psychotic disorders, those are the disorders that affect the mental faculties to such an extent that the person is no longer in control over himself and the activities of behavior that he is exhibiting. And this could easily go for that particular person that you see walking aimlessly on the road to and fro, or correcting papers along the streets. Eating disorders, you're either eating too much or eating too little. Trauma-related disorders, we have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We got postpartum depression. We got a chronic stress. All those are trauma-related. And lastly, what we all know in terms of substance and drug abuse disorders. I want to go to the symptoms, and the symptoms are very, very, very many. And what I have just given here are just indicators. And as I said, when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling that you do not want to go to work, or you don't want to meet that particular boss or that particular colleague of yours, that is a red flag. Just work with that as we look at these others. And hopefully you can also identify some of the issues you may have taken for granted and look at them from the mental health perspective. And let us not stigmatize mental health, because mental health just simply means, today I don't feel like socializing with people, all right? That is okay, and we should not actually look too much into it. However, if it continues for a period of over 2 weeks and beyond, and you don't want to change and come back to socializing with people, then there is a problem. You can eat too much. I've seen people in parties, they go and heap food, including fruit on top and broth or soup on top, and the food could be actually spilling on their hands as they walk along. Yes, you can eat too much at a given time. Maybe it is lunch hour or it is evening. That does not say that you are actually on the mental health watch, on the mental health watch. No, it just means that at that particular time you felt you're too hungry, you did not feel like taking too little. Or you could eat too little because maybe you're not feeling hungry. Eating too little or too much at a given time, there's nothing wrong with that one. However, if this continues, again, our benchmarking is a period of 2 weeks, 14 days, unabated, then there's a red flag. Sleeping too much or too little. Sometimes deliberately you sleep too much to compensate for the late night that you actually put into doing some little bit of work. That is nothing to worry about. Or sleeping too little because you have to catch a flight, you have to do this assignment, you have to go to class or to work early. That is nothing much. But sleeping too much over and over and over again for a period of 2 weeks plus, then there's a problem there. We have spoken about pulling away from people and having unusual and running away from the usual activities that you are used to. You could be a member of the choir, could be a member of the club, you could be a member of a chama, but you don't feel like going to those activities. Then we can raise a red flag there. Having low or no energy, I've just spoken about that one. And I know the young people say you're just feeling there, just feeling there. And you have even spoken to somebody on phone and they're saying, I'm just there. What does that mean? It means that you have very low or no energy to engage with somebody else. Sometimes you feel numb or like nothing matters. Nothing matters to me. Incidentally, that is a very, very great indicator of tilting towards suicide. Sometimes you have unexplained aches and pains. Mara, it is the leg. Again, you go to the arm. Again, you go to the head. Again, you go to whatever. The psychologists call them psychosomatic ailments. In Kiswahili, they say maumivu ya hapa na pale, what they call hapa na hapa or hapa na pale syndrome. Yeah. That is disturbing you. Sometimes you could feel helpless or hopeless or worthless. And this is one of the main indicators of tilting towards depression. Again, there are times you feel hopeless in a particular situation. So if it is just one episode and you can get out of it, it is okay. But continued feeling about this for quite some time is quite a problem. If you indulge a lot in smoking, drinking, or using drugs more than the usual, what we call getting dependent or
Mr. Kimani? We cannot hear you.
My apologies.
Sorry for that.
Can I be heard now?
Yes, we can. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we
Sorry.
got a power interruption for a
Sorry
while.
for that. All right.
Sorry to. All right. I was talking about feeling anxious, feeling worried, in spite of the fact that you have been reassured that all is well, getting fearful, scared, all that is actually an indicator that your mental health is not okay. Sometimes you yell or shout for no reason. You pick up little fights with friends and family members and colleagues for no reason. That is an indicator of a problem in their mental health. Experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships. And we know that, yes, at one time or the other, on account of very many things, including medication, including hormones, including environmental factors, sometimes your mood could swing because we are actually given into moods at one time or the other. And your mood could be elevated or could be very, very low. There is nothing in having a mood swing. The only problem is how you can be able to control that mood swing between a particular period. If you are continuously in that mood swings, and we used even to know it, even when we were in primary school or secondary school, we used to say this guy has got a mood, all right? Then that is a red flag. If you have persistent thoughts and memories you can't get out of your head, then you need to look into the issue of mental health. If it goes worse and you're hearing voices or believing things that are not true, then you're tilting towards the other side of either a mental disorder and you need to be looked into. Thinking of harming yourself, and this is an indicator that you're tilting almost towards suicide. An inability to perform the daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting to work, school, or church. And I would want to drop that slide and say that there are very, very many other indicators. If, for instance, I used to dress very smartly and all of a sudden I've changed and I'm becoming shabby, or I'm not, I'm having unkept hair, or you realize that my walking has changed, or so many other little things. Or you realize that during coffee time or break time, I don't want to engage with the other guys. Then you realize that you're actually almost on the verge of breakdown, and that is a critical indicator on mental health. I want to stop here and to see whether we can engage with the other.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kimani. You mentioned something to do with suicide, and I think at this point we just want to see what are the attitudes of our audience with regards to suicide. So I will launch the next poll, and I request your participation. Just a minute. All right. Okay, it just happened. All right. Okay, there's something wrong. Sorry for that, guys, but here we go. So we are asking, what do you think? Suicide can often be prevented. What's your take on this? Suicide can often be prevented. Do you strongly disagree? Do you disagree? Are you neutral about the same? Do you agree? Do you strongly agree? We'd love to hear what you have to say with regards to this. We're giving this poll 2-3 minutes. It's a 4-part poll, and we'd really love to hear what you have to say. So we have results trickling in. Most of us actually strongly agree we can prevent this, and that's a really good sign, I believe. Another we're asking is, suicide is a selfish act. What do you think? Is suicide a selfish act? And if a loved one died by suicide, what would you do? Would you keep quiet about the cause of death? And finally, we are asking, people who are suicidal, can they be treated and continue with their lives successfully? Can people who are suicidal be treated and go on to live successful lives? Thank you guys for participating. I can see most of us are over 50% are contributing to this conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we are about to close this in the next few seconds. Suicide can often be prevented. Suicide is a selfish act. If a loved one died by suicide, I would keep quiet about the cause of death. What am I saying today? People who are suicidal can be treated and go on to live successful lives. And Lillian, I'd want you to comment about the results that we are about to share. All right. I'm giving guys 3 seconds to close the poll. 3 seconds. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much for your participation. I'll be ending the poll now. Okay. So here are our results, and we are saying most of us say that we agree that suicide can often be prevented, with 38% saying they strongly agree that suicide can be prevented. I think that's a very good thing, Lillian. And suicide is a selfish act. Most of us strongly disagree and disagree. That's over 51%. That's 51% actually, which is a really good thing. Though we have an 8% and a 27% who agree this is a very selfish act. And I'd like Lillian for you to speak, especially with regards to this. Then we are saying, if a loved one died by suicide, I will keep quiet about the cause of death. We have a lot of people who strongly disagree and disagree. That's 78%. That's a really good number. Though we have that 8% who agree and 14% are actually undecided. And finally, we were asking about people who are suicidal. Can they continue with successful lives? We actually do agree. I think that's a very good sign. So Lillian, maybe you can comment on the results that we have with regards to suicide.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zawadi. And it's important that we talk about suicide and the attitude towards suicide, and especially because last month, that is September, was the Suicide Awareness Month. There's so much stigma, there's so much myths about suicide out there, and we realize many a times people assume that whoever is committing suicide, quote unquote, and even from the poll, that they are selfish. However, these are people who are calling out for help. Are we able to identify what are the signs and telltale signs that my loved one, that even myself or even a colleague is calling out for help? What are some of the indicators? It's important to mention them, because we cannot run away from the fact that during this period, statistics prove that rates of suicide, people dying by suicide, has increased. And the sad part is, unfortunately, here in Kenya, it is still a crime, unfortunately. So it's still considered as a crime, as opposed to a condition that needs medical attention. We assume somebody who talks about, I feel like dying, or I'll kill somebody, we assume they're seeking attention. What if we turn that around, that these people are actually seeking attention for help? What are some of the things that we can watch out for? Is this somebody who all of a sudden, they were very vocal, all of a sudden, they're very lonely. They've decided to seclude themselves. They want to constantly be away from everybody else. What are some of the other indicators? This is a person, all of a sudden, they could be unkempt. They no longer take care of themselves. They feel, after all, Why should I look neat? Why should I be okay? Ideally, most of the time, it's beyond them because they're feeling hopeless, helpless, and worthless at that particular point in time. Another indicator to watch out for is an individual who is giving out their precious possession. I have this item that I really love, and if anybody would touch it, I would have an outburst. But all of a sudden, this person is giving out these items. They're not selling. Because at the back of their mind, they believe that wherever they want to go, they will not need money. So they keep giving away the items. And the statistics also shows many people who die, notice that I'm using the word die by suicide because of the sector, that we're moving away from committing suicide because committing closes that as a crime. So we are moving towards dying by suicide. And my point here is many people who die by suicide, many times it's not the first attempt. So the other thing that we need to watch out for is somebody who is being suicidal. They've attempted before, they've been speaking about committing suicide. These are individuals that we need to take a close look towards them. And these are individuals who need our support. If we're not able to give that particular support, it is important that we refer them to the relevant individuals who can give them the much needed help. Now, allow me to read something on the chart that is connected to the suicide topic. What is the best approach to someone who keeps threatening he or she wants to commit suicide? I'll give that to Mr. Gidongo. Kindly answer that and then we proceed.
Yes. If there is somebody and who has given indication about suicide, most of the times we say keep on tabs with this particular person. Specify your availability at whatever time. And if you're not available, you could be able to tell them how or who else they can be able to reach out to. From the psychological perspective, we actually encourage increasing your frequency of therapy sessions. We also talk about giving the number. Sometimes have 1, 2 numbers. Give them all the alternative numbers just in case one is out of network. And also giving you out your number could be a savior in that if you tell the suicide person, whenever you feel like you want to go that direction, please call me. What does that mean? Because he may not have the number offered, or even if he has a number offered, he still have to whip out the phone and dial it or go to the contact and get it. What normally happens is that there's a disrupting effect. And that is very, very good because as Lillian, you're saying, suicide is always a cry for help. But if I know that I can get help from Lillian, who is my therapist, Lillian, who is my friend, Lillian, who is my colleague, that aspect itself will actually disrupt it. And showing some concern and some support. These are people who think that the entire support system from the workplace, from the family, from the friends is all gone. But if one or 2 people specify that I'm here for you. Every time you feel down, please call me or look out for me. That would disrupt the suicidal ideation. Back to you, Lillian.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Gidongo. And it's also important to inform the audience that that is one area in the mental health ethics that we are allowed to break confidentiality. Let me say temporarily, because when you are contracting, you'll tell the individual confidentiality is assured unless there's indicators of harm to self or harm to others. The reason why we do this is it is important to bring in the third party for support or for treatment. So by law, we are expected to do that. Anytime that there are indicators of suicide ideations, whether they are thoughts or the person is speaking about attempting suicide, it is important to note that. I know in our country right now, we are trying as much as possible, Mr. Gidongo, to decriminalize suicide. How far are we with that?
Lillian, I'm aware that some lobby groups and the human rights groups have also been engaged in this, and they are looking at some of the laws that actually inhibit the mental health of individuals in the country. One of the laws is suicide. Actually, not suicide. Suicide is not a crime. If you complete suicide, you are okay. You're not going to be taken anywhere to court. But if you attempt, the problem is attempted suicide. That is the one that is a criminal offense. If you attempt and don't make it, if you attempt and come out of it, you are going to be arrested. And we are saying, see, there's a mental health issue. This particular person actually deserves attention. And it could either be psychotherapy or medical. And lastly, social support. So if we are able to take care of this particular person, he should not be treated like a common criminal. Let me also, now that I'm talking about the laws that we wish to remove from our statutes, talk also about other laws that also touch on mental well-being, and those will be like the use of alcohol and drugs. We are looking at punishing the supplier, not the peddler in the streets, not the consumer. Even an issue like being in possession of drugs, you could actually be calling them from one to the other. If we know for sure that you are not going to sell these particular drugs, then we should actually refer you either for rehabilitation or therapy. And also because most of the people who are arrested, they either have got one stick or some little quantity of the drug, and they are made to suffer. And they're just trying actually to take care of their mental health in the best way that they know, which is a little bit unsafe. Number two, alcohol issues like being drunk and disorderly. In fact, in very many advanced jurisdictions or countries, what they normally do is that they escort you home if it is near, or they book you in a cell, and you're provided with a bed and a mattress, and you sleep and you wake up tomorrow morning and you go home. That is a way of taking care of that one. So suicide, along those other issues, we are trying to decriminalize them. And very fortunately, in the month of September, the Ministry of Health was able to accept that, and we hope that they can do a policy paper, roll it over to the Attorney General, who will then take it to Parliament, and the law can be amended. It can be very, very easy. It can be done within one sitting of Parliament, if the parliamentarians understand. But we as counselors, psychologists, as well as people of goodwill, we can actually advocate for that using this webinar and any other forum when we get out of here. Thank you. Back to you, Lilian.
Allow me to interject. Sorry.
No
we have a question that is aligned to that, and someone is asking, is mental, do suicidal actions, or rather are suicidal actions linked to one's genes or lineage or of an individual? I think that's the question. Are suicidal actions linked to one's genes or lineage? And I think the follow-up questions to that would be, how can we as a community deal with the stigma that we attach to mental illness and worst case scenario, suicide and suicidal attempts? Maybe Lilian, you can address that, or Mr. Githongo?
Let me give it a shot and then give it to Lilian, maybe yes, to boost it up. And the genetic composition, we always call it a predisposition to any kind of activity that may arise out of that. However, if you are aware that this particular family is gifted to this kind of a pattern, which we call multi-generational patterns, all right, the Bible calls it, or the religious calls it, multi-generational curses. You're going to get something like that. But in psychology, we call them generational patterns, all right, what arise out of what happens. So there is a lineage which could go into this. However, remember, attempted suicide, or if you complete suicide, or even alcohol, or even drug use within a particular family, that is the end product. That is the end product of what is disturbing these particular people. So if we can arrest the causes of this particular behavior, because the behavior is, the outcome of what is disturbing me is exhibited in behavior. And the behavior is to go to alcohol or to attempt suicide. So if we can go a little bit backward and arrest the causes, then we can be able to be okay. And that is why it is very, very important to know your lineage, my father, my mother, so that we can get to know what are the predispositions that are there. And if we are able to bring it to the surface that this is what happens in this particular family, they could be alcoholics, they could be gifted politically, they could be genetically predisposed, including medical conditions like cancer, diabetes, among those other things, then we can be able to address that root cause. Yes, so we can go to genetics or biological factors, and we look into them and then address them. We arrest the behavior of being drunk and disorderly, or going into drugs, or suicidal ideation. Lillian, you can give it a bite.
And that reminds me of the family tree and the genogram. And many a times we take it for granted. You hear, as you're saying, a certain family has a history of committing suicide or a history of alcohol. But I agree, I purely agree with you that it's important that we deal. I usually refer to it as dealing with the fire as opposed to dealing with the smoke, because the family that has history of dying from suicide, chances are very high there's depression in that family. Yeah. So it does not mean that, yes, it's in the family, so you will definitely get it. That's why we're using the word predisposed. However, once you have that awareness in your genogram or in your family tree, that right from the great-grandparents to the grandparents to my fathers or mothers, there's an indication of mental issues. And that is why when you're taking history or when you're going through the initial intake process for us in the mental health sector, we ask, is there any history of mental health? Reason being, we want to find out, is there family background? Is there something that we can be able to pick so that we can offer more help to this individual? So once you identify that, or once you have that awareness as an individual, you will definitely look for a solution, because you will accept that there's a problem. You will be able to identify what exactly is the problem, and the next step will definitely be looking for a solution. Now, Mr. Gidongo, what I wanted to add is some of the things you mentioned on the law, the alcohol issues and the dying by suicide. Once these laws pass, it will really help us who are in the insurance industry and also the insurance brokers, because we get so many questions, even when we're dealing with our clients. Why is suicide not covered? Why is attempted suicide not covered? Why is it that insurance does not cover rehabilitation? Yeah, and yes, they know this individual needs help. They end up going out of pocket to seek treatment on rehabilitation. Mr. Gidongo, rehabilitation, alcohol use. What is your take? And what is the rate during this COVID? You don't have to give us statistics exactly, but just a rough idea. How are we dealing with alcohol use, substance use, rehabilitation centers during this period of COVID? I know I've moved a bit, but it's in relation to the laws.
Yes, I totally agree with you that we got quite a problem, and especially at this particular time. And people used to go to the bars and spend the night there. Unfortunately, now the drug use and alcohol use has moved into our residential places. People buy from the supermarket and they go home and drink there. We have also a new emerging phenomena of what do you call these new rental premises? Airbnb.
Airbnb.
Yes. People can just hire it for 2,000. If we are 4 of us, we just changa 500. And there we spend the whole night partying. And there we are. So the only problem we are having is that, If the government can move with speed and amend these particular laws, but you know the government moves at a slow snail's pace. The problem would be what actually you had even indicated in the program, and I know that is what you said, you have moved a little bit fast, that the unequal treatment in matters of mental health and issues to do with suicide, issues to do with rehabilitation and what have you. It is taken that the people who commit suicide are those who are depressed, who have got myriad financial problems and what have you. However, that is far from the truth. Even the rich, and we used to have a movie called The Rich Also Cry, even the rich commit suicide. Even the rich in alcohol and drugs, and actually majority of them die out of something we call multiple organ failure on account of a lot of drugs and alcohol. However, it is never pronounced when they die. And therefore, this silence and the cover-up of people dying from alcohol, dying from the suicide, among very many other things, because suicide is not hanging yourself, it's not only hanging yourself. Suicide is not jumping from a building. Suicide is not drowning. There are very many people who die in their sleep, and we are told they just passed away peacefully in their sleep. Little don't we know that they committed suicide. Maybe the family members realize there are sachets of medication there and they hide them away, or they push them away before the police come, or something like that. Or even if the police come, they hush it and it is never said, it is whatever. And therefore, the powers that be, and I appeal to them all the way from the Minister of Health, from the presidency and down, if we can recognize that we are having a problem, and if we can take the opportunity, because the president commissioned a task force on mental health, and it gave a report, and it said these are the outcome, and some of these issues were actually covered there. If only we can implement that, if only we can fast track these particular laws, if only we can make mental health a priority, that it is rolled down to the workplace, it is rolled out to the families, and it is taught even in primary school and secondary school. That is the only time that you will recognize that we should not stigmatize it at all. And I could come and tell Lillian, I think your mental health is not very okay. That does not mean I'm saying Lillian is mad. However, madness is good, because you keep on saying anybody with a mind can go mad. And we have something we call temporary insanity. I'll just slap Lillian, she collapses there, and I'm in for murder. And this is the only time that if we treat mental health as part and parcel of a campaign in the country, we will even improve our own economy. We'll even improve our social relations. We'll even improve the outcomes, whether at the job performance or whatever occupation that we are. And actually, we can then achieve what they were calling the mental health and happiness country. Remember, there was an index which was indicating the level of happiness in a particular country. It was published, and I think we were ranked a little bit low because we have not given the importance to this issue of mental health. You know, there are no mental health facilities. There are only privately owned rehabilitation centers. And these rehabilitation centers, we do not know under what law they are coming under. I know NACADA is trying to set up regulations which will govern the operations of rehabilitation centers. But during this particular COVID time, rehabilitations have been fully booked. But the only problem is, what kind of services are we getting there? Are they actually monitored by the government to ensure that we take care of the mental health, and we don't have a guy going there for however many days and immediately come out and go into relapse? So this is a debate, not only for us, not only for the mental health professionals, but for you who are attending this particular webinar. You go out there and you become mental health champions. And you're able to detect it at the family level, at the workplace, at the community, and be able to continue with this debate on mental health. Back to you, Lillian.
And thank you for bringing up the issue of the mental health at the workplace. There's a question here. How do you deal with work-related triggers on mental health? And let me try and paraphrase it or add on to this. We are a community at the workplace, and we definitely have leaders, and we have the, let me call them normal staff. How would the leaders identify staff members who are undergoing mental health issues in the office? What are some of the triggers that it's important we watch out for, Mr. Gidongo?
As I have said when I was giving the signs and symptoms of mental health, take all those into consideration. But before I go into that, what is the level of awareness of everybody at the workplace, starting from the boss coming down, or starting from down to upwards? When somebody gets late, what do? Do you issue a warning, verbal, then followed by a written one, then followed by the second warning and the third warning, notice to show cause and what have you? That is the reign of the HR. I know employee-assisted programs are trying to counter that in a little bit way. Then if we are an enlightened mental health organization obsessed by the mental health of these people, I would want to sit down with this guy who has come late and understand. I would want to sit down with this guy who has come not dressed as expected and ask. I would want to sit down with this guy who is always holding his head at his workplace and find out what is happening. Not the line manager to come and say, you are too lazy. Why did you achieve your target today? So it may start from up and go down, or it may start from down and go up. So at the workplace, what we have been advocating for is just a webinar like this one. Take your people through this particular understanding of what mental health is and the signs to look out for. Is this person looking a little bit depressed? Is he looking, as we say, blue, the Monday blues, or whatever it is? And then once you identify that this particular person could be having an issue, then you deal with it. The lack of performance, because this person knows that he is employed, he has a job description, he knows he has to attain his targets at the end of the month, yet you can see him going down and down and down. Instead of talking to him, finding out what is happening, then you actually summon him and you actually make it worse for him because you have not understood why is he there? What is happening in his life? I could give a small illustration of this boy who was always late for class and the teachers punished him. It was a case in Nakuru. They kept on punishing him until one teacher decided, let me understand what is happening. And this boy went and told the teachers, my mother is a cripple. She actually sells bananas out there. I have to wake up, prepare everything and all the other children to go to school, and then wheel my mother with a wheelchair before when it is light, not in the darkness, and leave her there to get money to pay school fees for us. Please, can we start a new conversation, a new dispensation at the workplace that we can be able to take care of our own employees? And in turn, by the way, they'll take it back when you take care of them to their families, to the community, and mental health improves in our country. Back to you, Lillian.
So the key point I'm taking home here is awareness, awareness, awareness. It's important that as organizations, we first of all understand what mental health is, what are some of the components, what if my colleague, not necessarily even a head of department or even the HR, what about my colleague, the person I sit with, the person I talk to every day? Do I, especially now this period when many people are still working from home, do we follow up on each other? Let me use Zawadi. When was the last time I called Zawadi to find out how she's faring on? Or is it just work related? Have you done this? You have not done that. So once as a team, and when I say a team, is collective, right from that other. Call somebody randomly, find out how they are faring on. Somebody calls me, I will feel cared for. And I'll feel also it's important also to look out for my other. It's important because many times, yes, you will see work going down. What do Do we assume that they don't want to work? So it is important, once we have that awareness, we'll realize this is an indicator that something somewhere is not the norm. So the question would be, what next? What is the worst that could happen if you find out from the individual? I know I've used a term that we use in counseling. What is the worst that can happen if you find out from the individual? If they're having any issues and you can be able to give support. And we all need a shoulder to lean on. So it is important to note that. There's also a question that has come to me, anonymous. Empathy at the workplace. I know it's a bit connected. Can we have empathy with your team? Can you have empathy with your colleagues? How do you identify when your colleague is not performing well? Same person had sent that. And let me narrow down to something very, this I assume is a lady. Ladies, we have various issues, and we say that moods. I know men also have moods, because it is a feeling. But there are certain times in a lady's life that the mood swings could misbehave, whether because of pregnancy, whether because of hormones. When I say hormones, it could be menses. How do we handle such cases? How do we take care of these individuals? They could be going through certain issues. Let me now also expound. It could be even family issues, not just for the ladies, even for the gentlemen. Because once you are affected psychologically, automatically your hormones are not balanced. And that is why you find individuals who've had extreme, and now it becomes mental illnesses that need psychiatric treatment, they're put on medication. So my concern here is, how do we look out for each other? How do we empathize? How do we, as a community at the workplace or even at home, realize, yes, this is a pregnant woman. At this point in time, she could be going through certain mental issues that are making her behave in a certain way. How do we handle such cases in the workplace, Mr. Gidong?
I think we lost.
Yes, sorry for that. Please also couple it with this question, which has also come anonymously. Someone is asking, how does today's workplace enhance mental health issues, especially due to unattainable targets, performance pressure, scorecards, peer pressure from colleagues, and unreasonable bosses? And I think it's tied to what Lillian has just pointed out. So maybe you can address that conclusively.
Thank you. I think we changed the entire fabric of our community, and we became so individual. We know for sure that most of our traditional fathers and grandfathers did not undergo some of these mental health things. First of all, parenting was a shared responsibility with the entire community. And we used to care about the well-being and welfare of each other. And that is why even the normal greetings start with, how are you? Basically, you want to find out, but we just took it for granted that how are you is just a normal greeting. No, it is not a normal greeting. The other thing that we say, I was just checking on you. It has maybe taken the connotation that maybe I'm trying to start a relationship with you. I was just checking on you, all right? Or it has what the youngsters call strings attached. No, I just called to check on you, all right? We lost that particular fabric, and we live in a very fast-paced world. And you go to work, you have all the struggles at work, then you go home, there are all the struggles at home, and that cycle continues and continues and continues. And that is why it is very, very important to look at not only what we are talking about, but interventions generally in terms of mental health. And what Lillian has said is that the hormonal, the mood changes and what have you. That even when you talk about suicide, even when you talk about any issue of mental health, first of all, identify what is it that I am feeling? What is it that I am feeling? And can I be able to interpret it appropriately? Because once you interpret it appropriately, then it can lead to what am I supposed to do? The behavior, all right? I could feel very angry. What am I supposed to do? Slap the person next to me, or hit the wall, or kick the cat if it is near me? What are you supposed to do? And the moment you say, let me identify, let me interpret, then the third step is controlling how you are feeling so that you can behave appropriately. And we used even to have that even when we have a discussion. Instead of aggravating it to be an argument, then you say, let me think over that one. Let me reflect over that one. Let me sleep over that one. And I come up tomorrow. However, at the workplace, yes, it is fast-paced. You're not getting into the targets that you have been given. And all it takes is maybe the line manager to be able to understand what is happening in the life of this particular person. However, you as an individual, do not just wait for somebody to identify that you are in trouble, all right? So when I say, how are you? And actually this is a very misused phrase. You say you're okay. Even when you are in handcuffs and you're being taken to the police station, even when you are in bed and you are in hospital bed, how are you? I'm okay. Yeah, please say, I'm okay, but I am in this particular kind of a situation or condition. I'm okay, but I'm actually suffering this and the other. So it starts with you, first of all. However, on account of the fact that very many people would want to admit that they are not okay, you at the workplace, and very many workplaces have started now the employee-assisted programs. Those are the programs that are supposed now to empower the people to identify that Kimani is actually going through a rough patch. It means to identify, and you could actually salvage a particular situation. And therefore, even when we are faced with very many deadlines, well, okay, from the lecturers to the workplace to the hospital management, there is nothing wrong in postponing some performance or some task other than doing it and doing it badly. I believe you may not want to be operated on by somebody who is stressed, who is fatigued, who is anxious. You rather postpone that particular operation. And therefore, even at the workplace, let us understand. Even at home front, let us understand. And let me give this to the parents because we are faced with this situation. Our own students now who are going to sit KCSE in December of 2022. Others are sitting it this particular month of March. And the KCP as well. Let us actually be very, very patient with our students. Let us be patient with our children. Let us be patient with the teachers as well. And teachers, because I know there are teachers who are in this forum, let us also be very, very patient also with the parents. Let us also be very, very patient with the students because we know that we are undergoing a very abnormal types of time. Let us have understanding. Let us all have understanding at the workplace. Let us have understanding within the family. Let us have this understanding at the community level. Ask the watchman, how is it? What is happening? That is the only way we can be our brother's keeper. Sometimes you could be nagging. And sometimes when you are nagging, somebody says, and you have asked me too many questions. Yes, I'm not okay. Then you say, okay, how can we be of help? And you move it that way. So the ball is in all of us in a circular way. One, you as an individual, you can be able to do so. However, on account of the fact that people may not want to say the struggles they are undergoing, let us be on the lookout for our people, our children, our family members, our workmates, our colleagues out there, and our friends out there. Back to you, Lillian and Zawadi.
There's also another question. HR professionals have a key role in enhancing mental awareness. How can HR be supported to ensure they maintain their sanity as they balance policies, empathy, and mental awareness? And then I'll join it with one that what happens when you identify that a staff has a problem, but when you approach the staff, he or she denies?
Denial is very, very obvious. And we know the, what do you call them? The 5 stages of loss and grief. Denial comes in one of those stages. It is anger, sadness, shock, denial, bargaining, and then acceptance. And denial comes in there. And it is given to all of us. I am okay, I'm okay. Yes, denial will always be there, but please do not give up on this particular employee. Keep on going on to him. I know you said you're not okay yesterday, but from what I'm observing, all right, so give the observable aspects or behavior that has been seen so that you are able to penetrate this particular person, that they are not able to deny. I watched as you picked your cup of tea, your hands were shaking. Please explain it to me, what is happening there. All right, so let us not go with the attitude of the line manager or the HR that you're not behaving in accordance with protocol here. You actually dropped the cup which you are supposed to serve my guest. There must be something there. Please observe it. And that trickles down to the HR. Has it ever dawned on somebody that HR could be actually be the first people to suffer mental health issues? HR receive literally everything. They are told my child is sick when the child is not even sick. They are told I have a headache, I need an off when this person does not need that off. However, sometimes they're genuine, but they cannot do anything on account of the fact that the policies of the organization say so. People go and apply for advances. People apply for off days on account of various things. And the HR has now to balance, do I give, don't I give? What are the considerations here and there? And it is sometimes very, very difficult on the HR. And sometimes they could end up being the victims of a nervous breakdown. And therefore, on top of what we could give them is added education or added awareness about their expectations of the job place and the pressures within their work. Then we can talk to them and tell them to be able to leverage between the policies and between the mental health. Firstly, themselves, secondly to the line managers, and then down to the other employees. Therefore, we should not be able to forget that is a cyclic or circular kind of care for all of us. You have not even mentioned the CEO who is up there, or the MD who is very lonely. You cannot go and ask him, boss, how come today this is happening or this is not happening? Okay, sometimes it will require a lot of guts. They're very lonely up there and they require a lot of support themselves. So please, when you're in the lift next time with your boss, ask, how are you? How is everything? And everything else. And that will not be taken as insubordination that you're talking to him or whatever, because you'll have educated them that mental health from top to down, all the other way down to up. Thank you, Lillian.
I know that there's so many comments going on the chat. There's one, maybe managers should create psychological safety at work. Can the staff trust you to understand their mental issues? That's a question. Do they trust you enough to empathize? Just a minute. Do they trust you enough to empathize and support their needs? So it is important that we create a safe environment, a safe place, a place where if I approach you and I share very confidential issues with you, I will not hear them along the corridors in the next 1 hour, in the next 2 days, in the next 1 week. So as long as we ensure that we are creating the safe spaces, then our colleagues, then our friends, then our workmates will be able to have the confidence to reach out to us. Before I return it back to Zawadi, Mr. Githongo, somebody has sent me a question. Briefly, just talk about loss and grief, not necessarily because of death. People have lost various things during this period. How do we cope?
Thank you. Let me, before I go to that, I got to an issue I've seen repeating itself on the chat about the cost of rehabilitation, the cost of psychiatric treatment, the cost of psychological fees and what have you. And I know that is a cause of concern. However, there are some various institutions which are offering outpatient in terms of medical care and in terms of rehabilitation. You don't have to be an inpatient. And there are also very many other rehabilitation centers, which if you present your case, you can be able to get support on very reduced charges. And that will also go to the psychiatrists and the psychologists. As a matter of fact, and I know Lillian and Zawadi are aware, is that we keep on these inquiries about pro bono services, counseling, psychiatry, and what have you. And we have pools of counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists who we can call and say, this particular person cannot afford. However, do not take advantage over this particular situation. Let us leave it for those who may not be able to afford. And therefore, Lillian, from where you sit and from the contact of Zamara, they can be able to reach out to you. We form the consortium and we can be able to be assisting where it is possible. And I can assure you it is not possible to handle all the issues of psychiatric and everything in the country. But we shall continue lobbying the government, because I saw even the director of mental services, that is Dr. Njogona at Ministry of Health, was talking about having mental health centers in every county. That has been mooted. And that is something we also spoke in January 2019. We are at the Kenya School of Government in Embu when we are addressing the government health department together with the counseling department of the government. So if that can be done and the budget allocation is very okay, that people can go walk in there, get support services and go home, courtesy of the government. Or we roll it down also into the NHIF program or the universal health care. All those considerations are there. And if they're harmonized, it's very okay. Coming to loss and grief. Loss and grief is not basically on death. Death is the worst case scenario. That is what we look at it. If I lose this laptop and it contains a lot of my material, I am definitely going to undergo a loss and grief session. And as I said, the renowned steps to cope with loss and grief are from Kubler-Ross, and they categorize about 5 stages or steps. That is anger, shock, denial, and then you go into bargaining, and then you go into acceptance. Anger, shock, denial, and those ones, A, B, stage 1, 2, 3, I would not even know which comes before the other. I could be driving and I bang the car in front of me and I get angry at myself. Why wasn't I looking out? I'm very, very angry. Or it's a shock. You mean I have hit this particular, or I deny, oh no, it has not happened. Those are 3 stages, all right? However, you realize that, well, it has happened. There's nothing you can do. So you now go into the bargaining. Oh, I wish I was observant. Oh, I wish, or this, or I wish. However, it may not even help into that one. And therefore, you may slide down into depression as a result of that one. And then this may require psychological support or even family or community support, or at the worst case scenario, it may require psychiatric medication and management, and then psychotherapy after psychiatric management. And then at the end of the day, you come to acceptance that, yes, it happened. It's very true we can do. We either replace this laptop or we replace whatever happened, among very many other acceptance issues that you need to go into. And you may actually understand that some of the memorial services that are done after 1 year when somebody has died, because when somebody dies, you are rushed. The life history, the clothing, either the church or the mosque or whatever it is, it's a rush. Then people move. Then there are follows issues of low succession, among very many other things, finding out, was this particular person working, where was this thing, all those kind of things. So within a year, then we can take you to the grave and unveil the clothes and say it actually happened and he lays here. It's a good closure and it is acceptance. But the stages can actually, you can come almost to acceptance and you go backwards. So we need to be a little bit careful about that one. But people need to be aware about that one. And mental health experts, together with the mental health champions who are not professionals, can be able to work with a person to undergo grief and loss. Back to you, Lillian.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Lillian. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted
Sorry,
to give it to
Lillian.
you. I wanted to give it to you, Zawadi. Proceed.
Okay. All right. I think we are short on time and I'd like us to bring our webinar to a close. But just one last thing I'd like you, Lillian, to address is with regards to what are we doing about mental health as an insurance administrator. This is our species, Zamara. If you can speak on that and then bring the session to a close.
Thank you very much, Maureen, for that. So as Zamara, we have the toll-free counseling line for our members, where they can be able to reach out to us anytime they feel they need the counseling. The keyword here is feel, because many times we wait until things are extreme. So once you identify, it is important. Look at the telltale signs right from the beginning. And once you realize that I may need extra help from what I am able to offer myself, then you can be able to reach out to us. The toll-free line is available for those who are part of our members. They already have the toll-free counseling line. And many a times you'll find the line could be busy because people are calling left, right, center, but we can assure you that immediately we are done, we'll return the call. So your call at that particular time, in case it is not picked, please do not give up. Please do not lose hope. We will definitely reach out to you. We also have what the provider panel. If you're able to use your medical card, we'll also refer you to the providers in panel. There's also the provision for those who would want to see a counselor or a psychologist who is not within the panel and they would want to pay out of pocket. Yes, that can be done depending with the agreement with the insurance. You can be able to pay and a certain amount. The keyword here is customary and reasonable rate. If you go see a psychologist who's charging you, for example, 5,000, and your insurance is paying 3,500, that means 1,500 will act as a cost sharing as long as you keep your counselor. I know counseling psychology, you have a very close relationship. So many times you get questions. I have been seeing counselor so and so, and they're not on panel. What happens? So we are able to guide you on that. But at the end of the day, as Zamara, we do offer the counseling services. Once you call our toll-free line, it's totally confidential and it's toll-free. That means you're not going to be charged. We are very professional, we are ethical, assuming that you also referred from the HR or even your team lead or supervisor, whichever title. We do not give out the nitty-gritty details of the session because we are trained to keep confidentiality. We only have a bit that we are allowed by law to give out information. So please feel free, feel safe. Zamara is one of the safe spaces that we can able to give you the help that you need at that particular point. And we all need help. Psychologists need help. CEOs need help. The janitors need help. In short, we all need help. The question is, are you aware where you'll be able to seek the help? Because we have very many people out there who, we call them briefcase counselors, briefcase psychologists, whatever. So for you not to be able to fall into that trap, please, you can be able to reach out to us and we'll be able to guide you on the right place for you to get the help. Thank you very much, Zawadi.
Well, thank you, Lillian. Thank you, everyone. I think we need to bring this to a close. I'll allow Mr. Kimani to just give us a few closing remarks. I'll also give my own and then Lillian can wind the session up for us. Mr. Kimani?
Thank you very much. I am actually very delighted to look at comments coming through the chat because I did not even know that there are so many other facilities which are willing to give this particular kind of service, whether it is counseling or psychiatric support. I've seen even Chiromolin Hospital talking about that. I have seen Nuru Counseling Center, where I am also associated. That is at Daystar University. I've seen even psychiatrists, Samuel Gatere, offering that yes, we can contact him if we are into this. And this shows that this issue about mental wellness, if it is very well coordinated, very, very well coordinated, I think we can bring our country to where we expect it to be. It only requires a little bit of coordination. And I think Zamara and maybe ourselves, and I can say even at Counselor Psychology Society of Kenya, we offer that counseling services. And it is not necessary that you have to come to Nairobi. You call me up, and since I know all the counselors and psychologists in Kenya, and I'll team up with the Psychiatric Association of Kenya, we can be able to partner. Dr. Gatere has already given his number on the chat. We can always be able to partner and say, this particular person cannot afford, he is in Kibo's place at Kisumu, and we can be able to assist him where we can. And I know majority of counselor psychologists, majority of rehabilitation centers, majority of the psychiatrists, they have a slot for a free service at one time or the other, because we all are in the mental health field and we believe in giving back to the society through either CSR or through either donations that may come up there. So I'm very, very gratified. And I can see people we have worked with, like Dr. Pius Kigamo also has sent on the chat, and we can be able to form a consortium that can take mental health far. Let us not wait for the government, that it is the government which is going to do this for us. And I keep on asking the people, don't wait for the government. Don't ask what the government is doing. Ask yourself, what are you doing to promote mental health? Let be our keeper ourselves, because if you don't take care of yourself, maybe nobody will take care of you. However, let us be our sisters and brothers keeper in this journey of mental health. Thank you very much. Back to Zawadi.
Thank you, Mr. Kimani. Thank you very much. Mine is just to say thank you to our audience and to remind you that we have a survey post-webinar. So please take a few seconds of your time to just give us your feedback. And I want to make it known that we will be sharing the recording of this webinar as well, in case you would like to rewatch it or share it with someone who you think would be interested. So thank you very much. Lillian, I'll hand it over to you, and thank you, everyone. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, participants. We thank you for taking your time to come and listen to this webinar. There's so much we would have handled. Unfortunately, we assumed the time would be enough. There's so much that we have not responded to. However, because of time, we may not be able to respond to them live at the moment. We'll try our best, whatever that we can respond to, and send them out. Yes, sorry, there's somebody who's chatting something. We'll try our level best to respond to any of the requests. And it's important, even as you're winding up, that we remember that mental health is part of our health. According to the definition that we've been given for the World Health Organization, we cannot separate the two. It's the same way you say my legs are not part of me. I need my legs to walk. I need my hands to eat. I need my brain to think. So it is important that we remember that there is no health without mental health. And with Zamara, it's better. So in short, we are better with Zamara. Thank you very much for participating. As Zawadi has said, we are going to share the recording. We want to try as much as possible to respond to whatever we have not, but be assured that we are here, and Zamara will give you this safe space. Thank you very much, and take care and stay safe. Corona is still out there. Thank you very much.